lots of different things this year that we've had to do to adjust, make sure that we have safety measures in place. And the reality is some of them have actually made us go, hey, we actually like that system better than the previous system. But then there's other things we are ready to get rid of so that we can get back to normal. So when you see the pictures in here, when we're talking, we're really talking about a future that looks a lot like the past, not our current situation. So if you have questions afterwards about the pandemic, is it going to continue? I'm not a future forecaster, but I certainly hope not. We want to get our kids back on campus, especially we know our youngest ones really need that face-to-face interaction. So that's just a little bit of a disclaimer that we are plowing forward because our best bet, our best hope is that July 29th, I believe, is the first day of kindergarten for your little guys or your little girls, that they're going to be here and we can get back to a more sense of normal. All right, so you don't see a few of our office ladies on the presentation tonight, but for those of you who've been part of the Millennial family, you recognize Jan and Stacy. We also have Stacy who's up in the front, or not Stacy, Kenta, who's up there for 10 hours. But the two ladies you're going to see time and time again are Stacy and Jan. Jan opened the building 20 years ago. If you have a question, ask her. She knows the answer. She's an amazing wealth of information. If it weren't for her, I don't know what I would do on a daily basis. I know a lot of questions regarding stuff involve enrollment and things of that nature. I will always defer to the ladies up front. They will take great care of you. So that's who they are. And then obviously Mr. B and I have introduced ourselves. Every good company has a mission statement. We want to know what we're aiming for. And this is one that was collaboratively built just a year or so before I got here, but it still rings true today. We want to create successful collaborative learners inspired to be kids of character. The collaborative piece, again, some of those things this year we've had to put on hold because of social distancing, but that's what we really want to do is we want to inspire, we want collaboration, and we want kids to be not only good learners, but good citizens. And so that our mission statement really captures that. A little bit demographic information, you know, we do ebb and flow based upon the year, but currently, including our preschool programs, we have about 585 students. We have 21 classroom teachers currently. My first year here, I think we had 23. So again, depending upon enrollment, that will always trigger how many different classrooms we have. Every year I've been here, we've had 4 classroom sections of kindergarten. And so our best hope is to do that. Usually it's nicer to have that. In terms of how we staff that ratio, essentially we look at a 24-to-1 ratio, but there's a little bit of guesstimation that takes place. Our kindergarten teachers are loving their class size this year because right now they're sitting at about 19, 18, 21 kids. While that is lovely for learning, we do, depending upon the year and depending upon the enrollment, we will go up to about 24 in a classroom. And we are, you know, while every kid adds another layer of it, we are super excited and we know we can meet those needs to do so. We do have before and after school programs. We'll talk a little bit about our start times later here. We are the Falcons, we are red and black, and like every other Kyrene school, we do have art, music, library, and PE. There's going to be a lot of things tonight that we celebrate that are Kyrene wide, but then there's other things that we try to say, you know what, this is what makes Millennial special. But Kyrene in general, you can't go wrong. Millennial, and I'll just make up a word, you can't even go wronger. It's just an amazing place. What really stands out to me is the people. Like any good organization, you're only as good as the people who are here. And we have about 75 adults who truly bring skills and love to this place that you wouldn't believe. So we're really proud of it. Now over to you, Matt.
All right. So one of the things that makes Millennial a little bit different than the other Kyrene school districts is we host our half-day kindergarten program here. So we have full day and half day. The way that the half day works is I am the half day teacher. So the half day students are embedded in my class. They'll stay for the morning. So they'll get instruction in math and in skills, which is like our reading foundations. Sometimes they'll do lunch, but they'll definitely do like a morning recess with us. And then they leave halfway through the day. The full day students continue on with special areas, any other, like the last couple years they've done like our listening and learning component, which is, reading stories and comprehension. So, I mean, those are skills that we work on in another part of our reading curriculum. But so that's just one little section, and then lunch and then an afternoon recess. So full day and half day are both, in my room. And like I said, it just kind of embeds where they just leave a little bit earlier throughout the day. But I still try to ensure that they're not missing out on special events. So they'll still, kind of get everything that they want and need in the half day program.
And the half day program is something by law the district has to offer. So families that don't want to do full day, we do have half day families that start in half day and then say, you know what, we'd like to go to full day. And that's as simple as touching base with the teacher and Miss Jan up front, and then we get you signed up. Again, there's no cost to that. For me, it's just a matter of getting the paperwork so that we get that taken care of. So that is a nice option for families. And we do get families outside of our boundaries who like that option because we are the one place in Kyrene that has that option. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Our school hours, again, this year changed because of the pandemic. Next year, they're going to go back to a similar form that they were last year. And if any of you are into watching governing board meetings, they talked about this last night. And the reason that our school hours are different at different Kyrene schools is because from a budget perspective, it's really expensive to have every school start and end at the same time, because then your transportation staff and your busing drives, that's a huge part of the cost. And so Kyrene about 3 years ago went to a different bell schedule where there's different tiers. So a tier 1 school would start, I believe, at around 7:30 in the morning. A tier 2 school starts around 8:05 or 8:15, and that's all of our middle schools. And then tier 3 schools start this next year at 9:05. So that's been an adjustment, not only for our staff, but for our community. And so we want to be just very forward with what those times are. This year, we did go away from our half day every Wednesday. And the reality is we have the same amount of time, but we shifted around in a way that Wednesday gives us an opportunity to work with our staff on ongoing professional development and to get together to, again, grow in our own skill sets. Next year, that will be coming back, so that on the screen, you will see the hours of 9:05 to 3:55. And then on that Wednesday, it's 9:05 to 1:05. For our half-day kiddos, it really doesn't change. It's 9:05 to 12:05, no matter what day it is. So that is consistent with that. So those are our bell times that are going to be there next year. That is something that, again, we want to make sure parents are aware of, because there's families who that will work really well for, and there's families where that's going to be a struggle for, depending upon their own situation. So if that's a question you have more about, please reach out to Mr. B in the chat. If we can't get that answered tonight, but what I can do is share with you the school hours of the other buildings, and they'll do the same for families who are looking for a later start, because we know that, again, these hours are different than maybe some people are used. All right, so I did do the video tour, but we do have a few still frames that not very nicely put in here. There's a lot of pixelation, but when you walk into our front office, from a safety and security measure, we did make sure that years ago, we were responsive and made sure our campuses were as safe and secure as we could be. As I mentioned in the beginning video, you're not going to see a lot of windows in Kyrene buildings, and that was done years ago from an efficiency standpoint. It does double from a safety standpoint to make them that much more safe. But years ago, we did an office remodel, so you'll come in, but even though it's safe and secure, our goal is that you're going to feel warmed and welcome, or warm and welcome. You'll see Miss Stacy right there in that photo, but you'll always be greeted by her, Miss Jan or Miss Shenta, who will take care of you. Again, in a typical year, we have volunteers who come onto our campus, and we have different processes with that. I know that's a question that a lot of kindergarten parents will ask is, hey, when can I come in and when can I volunteer? Again, I'm going to answer that question from a typical year, and that I always say, ask your teacher, because every teacher is a little bit different there. Most teachers and I'll say, usually I say mother hen, but for Mike, I have to say father hen. Most teachers want to establish that first few weeks with their little chickens, so to speak. And they want to make sure, hey, here's how we ask questions. Here's how we do all of our routines. And once those things get in place, then typically our teachers are going to say, hey, here's how we can get help. Here's how you can help out in the classroom. So again, I'm going to defer to the teachers when that question comes up in the beginning of the year and you find out who your teacher is. I'll say reach out to them and see what their timeline is. But typically you're going to see from any elementary teacher that we say, hold off, give us a little bit of time to get things in place and make sure that they know, hey, they come to me with the questions, they do these things, and then believe me, we want to put you to work. We know that, having 10 kids is difficult, 20 kids is difficult, and anytime we can get a helping hand, I demonstrated, or I showed the Watchdogs. That was a program we started last year where we have dads of great students come in and we put them to work in classrooms. So there's lots of unique ways that you can help. And even if you can't be on campus, you can be that person who helps out at home. If you like to cut laminating out and you like to do things, kindergarten teachers love to put you to work. So that's going to be something that you'll get more information about next year. I didn't highlight our library, but our library is the center of our building. It's a beautiful facility with somewhere around 9,000 or 10,000 books. Our kindergarten teachers, our kindergartners go there once a week. They'll get a direct lesson from Miss Buck, who's our librarian, and then they will get to check out books, which is super exciting. And as they develop in their independence and their skill sets, then they get to check out more than one book. But we start them off typically with one because we know that's a lot to ask a kindergartner to keep a hold of. You are going to see, and I wish you guys could be here tonight, because the one thing I always share with parents is go visit the schools. I want you to really get a sense of how it feels to be in the building. And we can't do that tonight. Hopefully we can with our voices and our ability to answer questions. But, we just have a beautiful facility. Kyrene blesses us with some amazing facilities. You as a public bless us with additional dollars to make sure that we can keep our facilities up and running. And then we get these amazing artists around here who just make our hallways feel like you're on a Chip and Joanna Gaines, TLC show, because we really want this to feel like home. We want it to feel a place that's comfortable and safe and warm. And so, you're just going to see some amazing things. We do believe in the power of verbalizing all these positive things. This is one of our favorite phrases, the power of yet, because kids will oftentimes say, I don't know how to do that. And then I will follow that up with yet, because there's lots of things I don't know how to do, but I want to, I never want to say I can't do them. So you're going to see lots of those positive messages. But now going back into some of the more scholastic stuff, I'm going to turn it on over to our kindergarten teachers again.
All right, for school readiness, I'll take over on that one. All right, well, this is talking about school readiness is what kindergartners would typically need before coming into kindergarten. And it's just gonna prepare them that much more for the school year success, okay? Let me switch my view here, you guys. Okay. And so typically what the kindergarten teachers will ask for kindergarten readiness would be self-help skills. And we consider that clothing that children would have to be able to, button buttons, do their own zippers, belts, things like that. They're responsible for tying their own shoes. So anything with clothing. Restrooms, they would obviously need to take care of that by themselves, and personal hygiene as well. Using a tissue, washing hands, blowing their nose, all these things would be taught before they come to the classroom. Let's see, going into academics, we would, I'm sorry, let me go into maybe social and emotional. So that's another big piece is getting your children used to being with other children, coping with disappointment, not being the only child around if your child's an only kid at home. After that, maybe start working on 2 to 3 step directions. Having your child tell your child 2 things in a row, 3 things in a row, and start building up, from there. That would help out a lot for us starting the school year. Motor skills, we would ask you guys to be working on pencil grip. They can hold a pencil, they can cut with scissors. They would know the colors for the crayons, things like that. Let's see here. Going back to social and emotional acceptance of others. Children come from, their own home and often aren't exposed to others' values or cultures. So it's nice to expose them early before school, before they see other children. And then different in environments also. Let's see, going into academics, I would say we would like your child to be able to say their first and last name and their age for sure. You might think that's simple for parents. They might be able to tell you, but if you ask them to tell a stranger, it might be a different case. So please start to work on that with your children. First name, last name, their age. Recognizing their name in print. We would like them to be able to recognize their names before they come into kindergarten. Working on beginning sounds right now, the letter names of the alphabet. We would want you guys to start exposing them now. So when we come into the classroom, that we can start to actually use those as the tool. The curriculum we're using right now, the CKLA, is pretty fast paced in my opinion. So it does help tremendously if your child knows the name of a letter and the sound it makes before kindergarten. And that's not just singing the song. Singing the ABC song is just truly a song. You would need to take the letters out of order, mix them up, and then play with that. Let's see here. I think I said writing their name also. And then we're gonna go into math, maybe counting to 10, counting 10 objects, that would be great. Number recognition to 10, having the child, out of order, tell you what number this is all the way to 10. Knowing their shapes, more and less. And then lastly, maybe some book knowledge. The front cover of a book, what a title is, the top of a book, the page, the bottom of a page, how to turn a page, things like that, okay? So I think if your child has some of those skills before coming into kindergarten, they would be set up for success and ready to go right into the curriculum.
One of the reasons that we kind of go and stress this school readiness is because kindergarten is a lot different than a lot of us went, or than what it was when we went to kindergarten. There is a big, heavy emphasis on the academics, and, it's a lot more rigorous. We move a lot faster. So, in kindergarten of the past, it was more about the social skills and a lot of playtime and interacting, but, kindergarten is a lot more academic now. And so giving the kids that little bit of a head start kind of helps to encourage their success in kindergarten.
And please don't be afraid to teach anything early. I've heard parents in the past say, oh, I didn't want to teach that too early. You can never teach anything too early. The parent is the first teacher in their life. You are their first teacher. So go ahead and teach it now. It'll just make their life easier.
We're going to go a little bit into what a typical day of kindergarten looks like. Most of us start our day with our social emotional curriculum, but then we head into our skills, which is, like I said, are kind of like reading foundations. So we teach them letter sounds, tricky words, blending and segmenting words, and then we head into reading. So one of the big differences with our reading curriculum is that we don't start teaching letter names initially. We start with the letter sounds. So one of the reasons that we do that is as the kids are reading, they need to be able to know the sounds first so they can start blending and reading the word. So we'll get into letter names in about like December-ish, and then we always start with lowercase letters because those are what is most typically seen in books. So the first couple months of our school year are based on like writing strokes and kind of making sure that they're ready before we get into reading. So we do a lot of phonemic awareness, rhyming, oral blending, and then we'll start getting into a little bit more. So, the kids at this point are already reading books, reading words. So it progresses pretty quickly. Tricky words are what you might call like sight words or high frequency words, but they're words that don't follow like the phonetic rules. So like one, for example, is a tricky word because it's spelled O-N-E. O doesn't make the right sound. So that's kind of how we teach the kids those tricky words. It's like they don't follow the rules. So this is just a word that you're going to kind of have to remember how it's spelled and remember that this letter makes this sound. So that's our skills. And like I said earlier in the presentation, as we go through the year and they start reading their own student reading books, we'll start working on, retell and story elements, sequencing, character setting. So for example, if they're half-day students, they miss the listening and learning component that you'll hear about in a minute, they're still going to get those skills in this section of our day. So listening and learning, this is a big focus on listening comprehension. So the kids are shown pictures of stories and then we will orally tell them. So they're not, seeing any words associated with, it's really about them listening to the story and understanding what's happening. So stories can range anywhere from 5 to about 15 to 20 minutes. At the beginning of the year, they are a lot shorter because we know that they're just starting in kindergarten and they're just starting this practice. So we really kind of try to build them up to that 20-minute window of a story. Every story talks about vocabulary. So we're introducing a new word. For example, today my class, we introduced the word treasures. There's different words like in our plant unit, we introduced deciduous and evergreen. And it's amazing to go and to hear parents now talking about, their kids using these words at home and, parents being blown away because this isn't a conversation that a 5-year-old might typically have. We also ask the comprehension question. So not just your basic, what happened in the story or who are the characters, but trying to get them to think deeper as well. Why do you think the character did this? Why do you think the author chose to do this? So we'll ask them different questions that really encourage them to think about what is happening in the story and why things are happening as well. Social studies and science are integrated into our listening and learning elements and domains. So, we start talking about plants, we're actually growing plants. When we're talking about kings and queens, we're talking about how their lives are different than our lives and using that comparing element for them. So they have a way to learn about the world and science through these listening and learning domains. Small group reading. So we have what we call IFG. That's just the element or the part of our schedule and that we call it. And this is just a time that we really go and use to differentiate learning for the students. So we work with small groups. You can see in the picture, this is some of our intervention teachers who are working with a small group of students, but we're also taking a group and students are working in stations or learning games. So again, that are really kind of focused and geared towards what their needs are. So we want to ensure that, we're meeting and we're helping each child succeed. And then you can see reading for me, and I know it's the same with the rest of the team, but reading is such a big part of our day. And me as an avid reader, I love books. So we have our own classroom libraries that we're encouraging the kids to read in throughout the day. We talked about the library a little bit, so the kids get to go every week and check out a library book. And so it's a big part of it. And when you see them, going from our skills lessons where they're learning to blend and read words to where they're going and looking at a picture book in the library and really enjoying it and seeing that they can be successful at reading a book, whether it's reading the pictures or reading the words, it's kind of a big celebration, not only for us, but for them, because they are thrilled when they can say, I can read this. it's an amazing experience to go in to see a kindergartner have that face and start reading and really understanding what they're doing.
All right. And when we create our kindergarten schedule, we try our best to really for any of our grade levels, we try to have natural breaks in the day because it's a long day. And while kindergarten's fast-paced, so it's first grade, second grade, third grade, the amount of information we're given to these kids these days is a lot. And so we know, again, I'd say one of the things that makes Millennial special is we understand that we have an obligation to make sure we teach your kids the most we can, but we also understand the balance that needs to be happening in their lives. We know that they need to play. We know that they need to breathe and just be 5-year-olds at times. So we will break to get, their schedule every year switches a little bit, but most likely our kindergartners are going to be on the front end of our lunch schedule, which will be starting around noon. If we're starting at 9 o'clock, that puts us about halfway through the day. In a typical year, the kids are going to go out to recess first, and then they're going to come in and play. Now, I'm not a weathercaster, but I'm pretty sure July 29th, it's going to be hot. And so we will have a modified schedule for recesses on those days. And honestly, we will throughout August and September. And so on those days, the kids will get 15 minutes of recess and 25 minutes for lunch, which is nice in the beginning of the year for our kindergartners, because as the year goes on and our weather gets nicer and we don't question why we live in Arizona, it then becomes a 20-20 split where they go to recess for 20 minutes and then they eat for 20 minutes. But the beginning of the year, we do build a little bit extra time for them to do that. I know earlier Mr. Blair talked about independence. If you guys want to work on opening milk cartons, I will kiss your feet, because that is just the hardest skill. And some of those I can't even open, but we do our best to obviously support them. We have additional support in there. I still can't open a Go-Gurt without squirting some of it on myself. So again, I think there's ways to make money out there. If you can make some things that are easier for kids to open, that's a great entrepreneurial venture. But the reality is we have a lot of support in there. If they don't have enough time to eat, we will give them more time to eat. Oftentimes kids will go home and say, I had to throw away my lunch. No. We would never want a kid to throw away their lunch. We'll always say, oh, if you didn't get done, we're going to have you finish right here. We'll walk you back to class. Or a lot of times the teachers will say, let's have them bring it back to class. They can finish it in the back of the room. We know how important it is to get food into those bodies so that they're going to have enough stamina for the afternoon. So 20 minutes lunch, 20 minutes recess. Again, when we think about independence, and I will say I never said this because Southwest Food Service does a really good job, but the first 2 weeks, if you could pack their lunch, it's going to be that much easier for them. Because if you've ever seen a 5-year-old try to hold a tray of spaghetti, it's not pretty. And there's cleanups on aisle 4 all 20 minutes long. Now, if they're really good at that, that's great. And obviously, if you want to take advantage of the lunch program, I do encourage you to do that. But they will get in a little bit more time, a little bit quicker. When they go through that lunch line, they also have to be able to say their first and last name. And kindergartners, again, heard earlier in the presentation where we encourage them, can they say their name when it's someone they don't know? And when we have our lunch manager in there and they don't speak, 5-year-oldese, and that kid's saying, now a lot of times our teachers will put stickers on them, so we have their name on them. But again, we want to build confidence. We want them to be able to navigate those things. But if you want to make your child's life a little bit easier, my tip to you is pack their lunch, because you know what they like to eat, and they will get to the tables a little bit quicker. The one big question they have during that time is, where did my teacher go? And I said, your teacher needed a break. So the teachers drop them off with us. And that first day we blow the whistle for them to line up, and they don't know what that whistle is doing. That doesn't bother them. So we teach them how to line up and we bring them inside. It is entertainment galore each and every year. But again, we surround the playground and the cafeteria. We know they need it. But honestly, after 3-4 days, you'll be amazed at the independence and the confidence that they start to show. So it's really a neat thing to see. All right, there's my phone ringing because apparently my son skipped class in high school. All right.
Before you switch, kind of going back to that independence piece at lunch, if you guys can help by like having the kids practice opening the containers, opening up Ziplocs, practice packing up their lunchbox. You know, those little things are the biggest time savers for them, and especially in that time to go and to eat their lunch. If they know how to do that, then they're not sitting waiting for help. You know, so, you know, teach your kids how to do those things. Teach them how to, you know, open up their water bottle, and, you know, so think about like how you're packaging and how it makes sure that your kids know how to open that packaging of lunch.
And to tag team on what Anna just said, teach your children to clean up after themselves, because they'll sit there and they'll just like, okay, who's going to pack my stuff and throw it in the trash for me? Unfortunately, we don't have the amount of staff to do that. And I'm sure our custodian, Mr. Art, would really appreciate it if you could teach your kids how to do that. All right, moving on to math in action. Our math curriculum is Ready Math. Ready Math has a very high focus in discourse. The students are expected to talk to each other. That's how they share their ideas. And, you know, I'm sure as parents, you know this, you can tell your child something over and over, but if they hear it from another kid, wow, it's like, oh, I've never heard that before. That's great. So kids learn a lot from each other. And that's why we really encourage you to have your children talk to you, to their siblings, to their friends, just about anything, so that when they do come into school, they are ready for that discourse portion of our math program. It helps them truly understand the concepts. And as you can see in kindergarten, we truly believe that hands-on learning helps them learn. So we all enjoy having the kids do activities, play games, and you'll see that going on to what Anna said about our IFG areas. It's not just in reading, it's also in math. So there's also a big game component in that. iReady Math has an online component that the students are expected to do. We do a diagnostic at the beginning of the year. Each student does it individually, and they receive their own learning path from how they do on the diagnostic. So during school, we try to have them go on to iReady for at least 20 minutes, 2 times a week. I know once they are finished with the diagnostic, it is possible for them to do it at home, but we do ask that you don't help them with it, because the more help they get, their learning path becomes more difficult. So then when they're on their own, they may get frustrated and not want to complete the tasks. These are our special areas. As Michael said, we are lucky enough to have PE, music. We have Mrs. C teaching us music right now, and art, Mrs. Yorio has been with us as long as Mr. Blair, I believe. She's a fabulous art teacher. And then in library, we have Mrs. Buck. And Michael also explained that the students are allowed to check out books, and she does teach lessons along with that. So it's just a great opportunity for the kids to not only leave the classroom and experience other areas of the school, but also other teachers and learning environments.
Okay, technology. So one good thing that's come out of this pandemic is that we are now a one-to-one school, which means we have enough laptop computers for each student to have one to use each day in the classroom, which is super exciting. I can't wait to actually get the opportunity to use them, since I teach the flex option. So my kids are not coming back in person anytime soon, but that's pretty awesome. So we also have 3 computer labs where we go usually once a week. So now we'll have a little bit more exposure, but we try to teach them certain skills like logging into the computer under their username and password, using the mouse, how to navigate through what we call Clever, which is where we house a lot of our digital components, like we spoke about earlier, iReady and Amplify Reading. And then the kids they really do get more independent the more practice they have on it, and they get to kind of play on those games, which they think are games, but it's also teaching them and reinforcing all of the skills that we've been teaching throughout the year. So they have a lot of extra practice, which is fun. And then we also have the smart boards. Each classroom has a very large smart board that we can make lessons more fun and interactive. They can come up and move things and draw on it. It's kind of like a big, huge tablet, and it's really fun for the kids to use. I think there's anything. I think that was it for that one. And then we have our social and emotional curriculum. So Sanford Harmony is the curriculum we've adopted. This is our second year using it, and it's a lot of fun. The topics that this covers is diversity and inclusion, empathy and critical thinking, communication, problem solving, and peer relationships. And we have a specific time in the day that everyone does these lessons and activities. They're really fun. They get the kids really talking to each other and using the skills that they're hearing in the stories with Z, this little alien here that is the character in all the stories. He sort of comes down to earth and doesn't know how to act and be human, and it kind of just teaches them how to be good people. And the kids really enjoy him, and they have fun with it while we do it. And then choice time and recess. So recess, we kind of spoke a little bit about. It's we have 2 per day. One is connected with lunch, and then the other one falls somewhere in between. However the schedule works out, it's different every year. But they get to go outside, play on the playground, or we have basketballs and bubbles and hula hoops and fun things for them to do on the blacktop, as well as soccer balls and things like that to play out in the field. So they have a lot of options for movement and exercise. And this is pretty unstructured time where they kind of just get to play with their friends and have some social time and be kids, which of course we know they need. And then choice time is a separate time of the day, usually falls at the end, where it's a little bit more structured. We lay out certain centers for the day and they get to choose, and then they kind of get to play, but it's more pretend based depending on what they choose. So we have the kitchen area, which is kitchen and dress up and pretending. We have blocks and Legos, and the book area is usually open for them to just discover through reading, and just enjoy and choose whatever books they want to look through. We also have painting and Play-Doh and a lot of gross or fine motor skill kind of things that they can do while they also interact with their peers. This is probably my favorite part of the day last year, because I just got to really listen to them play with each other and talk to each other and interact, and sort of, they like to play teacher, they like to pretend that they're me, and that's always fun to hear and listen to them teach each other things. It's a good time. So even though it is a very busy day, they do get that fun and interactive time that they need as well. Mike, I think you're up. You gotta unmute.
Okay, thank you. So our school has adopted the acronym SOAR, and that fits along with our Falcon mascot. And so SOAR stands for Safety, Organized, Accountable, Respect. And so you'll see that all over our school. And we talk about this pretty much daily with the children until, especially in the beginning of the year, until we start to understand what these are. And then we can explore how to use them correctly. Safety and respect seems to be the easier ones for children to understand. Safety, they understand that because it involves them and keeping them safe. They've heard that a million times. And respect, hopefully they've heard of that a lot at home as well. Respecting your mom, your dad, friends, teachers. But the other two are a little more difficult for the kids to get a concept of, being accountable and being organized. So we do spend some time teaching the kids that, and we do hold each student accountable for their actions and for their learning. And organize, we want to teach them good organization skills in the beginning of their life, and that will just carry on for success later in life. I think that's it on that one.
All right, and I'll add to that, within Kyrene, every school has an acronym that kind of talks about what are our values. And these are the values that we came up with about 3 years ago. So we try to, and what we know about behavior is the more we encourage the correct behavior and the more we praise it, the less misbehavior that we're going to see. Now, kids are humans and humans make mistakes, and 5-year-olds make mistakes a lot. But what we also know is we have to, if a kid doesn't know how to read, we teach them how to read. If a kid doesn't know how to behave in a certain situation, we teach them to behave. Now, sometimes that teaching comes with consequences, obviously, if someone's being unsafe. And so we have that layer, and that's, what we do. But the reality is the more we promote those positive behaviors, being safe, promoting, oh, I really liked how you guys lined up and made sure that there was space for your friend, the more kids are going to emulate that behavior. If I just say, hey, don't line up so close to them, I'm not teaching that. I'm not teaching the expectation. I'm just reminding them, here's why we don't do this. And so really it's about how we talk. And again, we know that just because I say, I really like the way that you raised your hand, doesn't mean every kid's going to raise their hand to communicate every one of their needs for the rest of the year. But the more we emphasize that, the less disruptions that we have. So that's really an important part of what we do here. And the biggest thing that we can do to get kids to buy into it is to give them verbal specific praise. Yes, when you go to Chuck E. Cheese and they earn those tickets so that they can get that 3-cent, thing, we said there's times where we put those trinkets out there because we know they'll work for them. But the reality is we really want them to feel good about what they did and understand why they were praised for that. So that's where a lot of our focus is going to be. And again, that takes a lot of the emphasis off of, hey, you get a call from Mr. Lamp, because yes, that stuff does happen. Well, again, that's part of the learning process, is making mistakes, but we really try to promote the positivity of these things. It just makes the school year go that much more smoothly. So at the end of the day, this is one of those slides where I wanted to change it, but I didn't want to change it because as a staff, we still have to sit there and say, well, if we're back to normal next year, what do we want this to look like? Because this year we had to pivot and we had to make some adjustments to make sure our cohorts stayed together and we were keeping social distance. And honestly, it's one of those things at the end of the day where we're like, hey, we kind of like this. So I don't know exactly what our end of the day is going to look like, but what I can tell you is it's going to be safe and it's going to be as organized as we can make it. And what I really encourage parents to do is everyone follow the system. Well, what happens is when a parent says, oh, I'm going to do it this way, it just creates a little bit of chaos. And so we had a lot of success with this year, where we actually had our kindergartners dropped off and dismissed from the front of our building. In years past, we had everyone go to the west side of our building where we have our parent pickup. But this year we did dismiss and arrive, or have our kindergartners arrive at the front of the building. Parents parked and got out of their car because it is a bus lot. We want to make sure that we're safe, but it really went smoothly. So this is going to be one of those to be determined things, but we really kind of liked how it went. And what I can tell you is, as long as we know how they're getting home at the end of the day, things go beautifully. And your teachers, when you get to that meet your teacher night in late July, they're going to give you a piece of paper that says, what's your go home plan? And that is the most sacred piece of paper we can hold, because there's no worse feeling than saying, gosh, I don't know where that kid is. And if we all know, here's how this child is getting home, it makes life so much simpler. Yes, there are going to be times where you have to call and say, you know what, they're going to, rather than going on the bus, they're going to be picked up by their aunt or uncle today. And those things happen, life happens. We just ask that you communicate that in a timely manner, and just understand that these kindergarten teachers have very little time in the day to sit down and check email, because they've got little 5-year-olds poking them saying, Mr. Blair, Miss Sullivan, Miss Sawyer. And so if you do have a change in your end of the day plan, please call the front office and then they will alert the teacher to that. But as long as we're on the same page with that go home plan, it really goes smooth. The first week or two, yes, you will probably have some lines of cars. Yes, you will probably have some people who may not be showing SOAR behavior as adults. We encourage them to do it because honestly, I want an efficient system, but really at the heart of it, we want a safe system. And we can get 585 kids out of here. If we do it well and efficiently, we can do it in about 12 minutes. And that is a pretty tall order. Now there are parents, if we're finishing at 3:55, there are parents who will start parking their cars at 3:25. I'm not going to let the kids out a half hour early. So if you're going to come a half hour early, just know you're going to have to wait. But honestly, just know that we're going to get them out at an established time. Next year, if our dismissal is 3:55, again, depending upon how all this stuff rolls out, we would most likely start to dismiss our kindergartners around 3:50. If we did it at the front of the building like we did this year, we have an adult out there, they have a computer in their hand, and you come up and you tell the adult your kid's name. And it's kind of like ordering fries at In-N-Out Burger. You come up, you say, yeah, I'll have a 5-year-old, their name's such and such, and they're in Miss Sawyer's class. Can you give me a cheeseburger with that? We probably won't give you the cheeseburger, but we'll send your kid out to the established path, and they'll be right out, they'll greet you, and you'll be on your way. So it's been a really slick system. Again, we'll have more information about that, but the key point here is, however they're typically going to get home, we want to make sure we know that, the kids know it, and if there are changes to the plan, that we have enough warning ahead of time, because there's no worse feeling than not exactly sure where a kid, how they got home. And kindergarten teachers, they don't rest until they know each and every one of those kids is safely with you. Excuse me, with you guys. All right, communication. Speaking of that, I'll turn that.
All right, so as you can see, conferences are scheduled each year in the fall and the spring. In the fall, go back, Michael. In the fall, it's typically with your classroom teacher. But in the spring, we like to have student-led conferences. That's when you get to come in and actually run through it with your child. And, I hadn't done that before I came to Kyrene. And oh my goodness, it's amazing. And the parents find it amazing too, to actually see what their kids are doing in school. Report cards are sent home for kindergarten only in January and May. We only do the semesters. We do not do quarterly report cards like the other grades. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact any of us. Schedule a talk, email, anything that you need. A school newsletter goes home every month, and that comes directly from Mr. Lamp. But we also have classroom newsletters that go home at least once a month, if not every week or every other week. So again, we try our best to be very open with our families on what we're doing in school. I know it's hard. I'm a parent. I've raised kids. When I sent my first one off to school, and the kindergarten teacher didn't let me come in like preschool did, I was like, well, what are you doing in school all day? So we do try to be as open as possible, and please feel free to contact any of us.
Kathy, I'm glad you brought that up. Typically in years past, that first day of school, we know it's just precious. You're going to look at that kindergarten photo for years to come. And in a typical year, on that first day, we've usually had all the parents be able to join us on the playground and drop their kids off. And again, we're going to look at the structure of that and if we can pull that off in a safe manner. But that's our best hope, because we know that moment doesn't come again, and we want to be able to create that. But then all of a sudden, Mr. B and I become bouncers, and we get to the door and we say, we got to hold tight. We do have safety and security measures, and we can't let folks in the building. So we do want to, we're going to hopefully be able to create that moment, that first day moment on the playground, to be able to do that. But we don't let people in the buildings. They're going to have a lot of stuff to carry. You can bring some of that on Meet Your Teacher Night, but we'll also have adults to be able to carry that stuff in. So please know that. I know every year someone gets really mad at me and I feel horrible, but I promise they're in good hands. And the best thing you can do, because there'll be at least one crier. I know you don't want it to be your kid, but if it is, they're going to be okay. The best thing you can do, give them a big hug, tell them you love them, and then hand them over to me. And then go. Because if they see you, they're going to keep crying. I'll make sure we get them into the building. I'll always call the parent and say, and I've got a track record. I think it's usually about 10 minutes. They're in the room, the tears are dried, they're starting to get the hang of it. I know no one wants to leave a broken child, but honestly, the best thing we can do in those cases is just give them to us. We are going to love on them. I promise it. We'll take good care of them. And with any good luck, we don't have that, attachment, but if it happens, that's totally normal. We get it. Those are moments we can laugh about years later, but we'll take good care of them. And hopefully we can create that good moment so that we can have a little bit more of that this next year. And I'm not sure, I think I'm doing this slide, or are you doing, Anna, you doing?
Yeah. So just some reminders for you guys. Registration packets, immunization information, all of that is available on the website. So if you haven't yet registered your child, go on to the Kyrene website and you'll fill that all out electronically. Please make sure that you're including the emergency contacts. And then as the year starts, if anything changes, make sure that those stay updated, because if anything happens, we're going to go to you first, obviously, but then we'll go to those emergency contacts, and we want to be able to reach you guys or whoever we need to. If your child is going to be absent or late, please, please, please make sure that you're calling the attendance line. A lot of the times we'll have parents like emailing and letting us know, but if the front office doesn't know, then that, you just want that to be recorded correctly and the reasoning why. So, that's all handled up at the front office. The first day of school is Thursday, July 29th. You will find out your child's teacher on Meet the Teacher night, and that will be provided as we get closer to the date. And then if you have any questions or anything, information, you can always go to the Kyrene website and they have a lot of information and updates there as well.
All right. One thing I want to turn over to Mr. B, because he's got a form that's really important for us. We want to know a little bit more about your child. Sometime this summer, we're going to get together and we're going to put together rooms of kindergartners. And when we have rooms of first graders and second graders, we've laid eyes on 80% of them and kind of know who they are and what makes them tick. But a lot of your kids we don't know. And so Mr. B is putting a form, a Google form in the chat that we would love for you to fill out. We may contact you and just connect and see if you have any questions that didn't get answered tonight, or if you want a little bit more one-on-one time. We know this format doesn't necessarily allow a great opportunity to do that, so we want to make up for that. So please fill out that form. That gives us more information about your child and obviously gives us some contact information so we can reach out to you and have just a more individual conversation about kindergarten if you have questions. The other thing I wanted to point out, and I should have pointed out in the beginning, I apologize for not doing that, but we did record this because we know there's certain families who couldn't make it tonight. I'm going to work my technology skills after this. Most likely what I'll do is I'll drop it into, we do have a YouTube channel that we're just starting, but that gives us an easy link to be able to send to you guys. We try to be active on Facebook and we try to update our webpage, but we know there's different things that will work. And so most likely, again, if we have your contact information, Mr. B or myself may send out an email in a day or two saying, here's the link to the presentation if you had any questions. So that's just another way for you to go back and get any information that maybe you missed. All righty. So everyone sees that. I see Steve put that in there. Steve, were there questions that came up that didn't get answered? Or?
There weren't. I was monitoring the chat box and I felt lonely. Didn't get a whole lot of questions. So if anybody has any now, feel free to address them to me and I can read them out, because chances are you're probably not the only one wondering.
And we're teachers, we can wait you out. Right.
We have a question here. They're asking, can they register at any time?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Anna and I were fighting for that answer there, weren't we? Yeah. The registration for next school year started, I think it was January 12th this year. So you are welcome to go on there. Everything's online based. We switched to that a year or two ago, and it's gone really well. It was a bumps and bruises like anytime you switch to a new system. But if you get in there and you're struggling with that, believe me, Stacy and Jan have become tech support 101. They're like tech support 401. They can help you through anything at this point. So if you go onto the website, yeah, everything is online, which does make it efficient. So then once your kid gets in the system, you're not having to fill out some of the same paperwork every year. So there is a benefit down the line for you guys that hopefully we make that a little bit easier for you. But yep, registration's open. And the one thing I would encourage you to do, I mentioned earlier in the presentation, our staffing does change depending on how many kids come to our campus. the more we know earlier on, the more prepared we can be. And I will say this year, Miss Sawyer did not start the year as a kindergarten teacher. She ended the year as a kindergarten teacher, and then I had the horrible job of calling her and saying, I need you to move grade levels. And she was an awesome professional and did it with grace. And then about 3 or 4 weeks into the year, guess what? I got the call from our district office and said, you got enough kids to have a new kindergarten. And so I told Kathy all along, I promise I will give you your spot back if you want it. And so she did that. And while it worked, I ultimately hope those moments never happen. And the best way to do that is register. Even if you don't choose us, choose someone. It helps out your child, it helps out the school know who's coming their way. And if you have friends, if you have neighbors, and they're like, oh, we'll get to that in August, tell them no. Honestly, to make it the best experience for you and the most coordinated experience for us, register early because it does really help us as we put together our staffing plan for the next year. All right, well, if you are done listening to us, you are welcome to sign off. We'll stay on here for another minute or two, and if we don't hear from anyone, we'll give you the wave. Again, we will reach out to you guys just to do a follow-up, number one, and then number two, we'll get that YouTube link. We'll put it on our website, on our Facebook. If you want to follow us at Kyrene Del Millennium Facebook, we try to be active. Sometimes we get in a little bit of a lull, but most of that is honestly just kind of fun stuff. So if you're in the mood for some good fun stories, that's typically where we put them. We really want our good information to come directly from the teachers because we know that that's the best way to get it to you guys.
We had another question here. What does before school care look like?
Oh, yeah, I know earlier in the presentation, I mentioned we have before and after school care. Because we're a tier 3 school and we start at 9:05, obviously we know that not everyone's work schedule does that work for. So what we've noticed once we've gone to a tier 3 schedule is our Kids Club morning program is much busier than our after school program. And our Kids Club in the morning does start as early as 6:30, although I want to say I heard in the governing board presentation last night, the 7 o'clock, but so I'm going to check on that. But this past year, or let's go back to our last typical year, we had kids able to be dropped off as early as 6:30. They're under the care of Kids Club until 15 minutes before school starts. And last year, let's say if we have a 9:05 start time, kids are going to be allowed on campus at 8:45, about 20 minutes early, and then we'll allow them onto the playground. And so then Kids Club would hand them over to us. And Kids Club's going to have different rates of pay. I think they'll work with families, scholarships, and then I think they have some bands in terms of if you sign up for this many mornings. I don't want to give misinformation, but they do work with families to be able to do that. So the before school in the years past was 6:30 until the time they could hand them off to us. And then after school, they take the kids directly from us. Our kindergarten kids who go to Kids Club, they come down to the kindergarten hallway where our kindergarten teachers will stage them there, and then they'll walk them back. And they try to keep the kindergartners separate from the other kids, it just makes sense so that they don't get kind of swallowed in the herd, so to speak. So our before and after school program does a really nice job with it. Again, we noticed that since we get out later, not as many people need the after school care, but the after school care will be available from 3:55 to 6:30 in the evening. And our community education does all that. We don't do it at the site, but Jan and Stacy can definitely give you the contact information. I should have a slide with that on that. I apologize. If you want that information, let us know and we'll get that for you. The other thing I will say is, obviously we have our Kyrene programs. We do have daycare vans that do come here to drop kids off and pick them up. So if you are doing daycare at other facilities outside of Millennium, just talk to them and see if they come. I believe Tutor Time comes here. Renee, I know you've lived daycare. Who all comes here?
Rise Preschool and Learn and Play also.
Learn and Play and Sunrise. Okay. So yeah, several facilities will come drop them off. Obviously, I'll always promote Kyrene, but there's good care out there in different facilities. So please research what works best for your family. All right. Well, I'm going to call it. I will stay on here. Everyone else, I'll let you head on out. But if you want to stay on and ask a question, I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for joining us. I know virtual is not the way we wanted it, but hopefully you got the information you needed. And look for one of us to be in touch with you, see if there's any follow-up that we need to do on our end. You guys stay safe out there, and we look forward to seeing our future Falcons next July. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it, teachers. Looking forward to it. Thank you very much.
Hello, Stone family. This is going to be number 3 or 4? 4. Oh my goodness.
This is our last one. Oh.
Yay.
The last one dance back there.
Yeah, she's excited. She's really looking forward to it. Especially because she's gonna be riding the bus with her brother and sister. So
Even more fun.
yeah, the bus ride is like the best part of the day, apparently.
For a while, and then the novelty goes down.
She's already at the preschool, so
Yeah, she's already. She won't be one of the criers, I'm thinking.
She's going to be running away from you.
Yeah, she's gonna be like, "Ooh, this is a new door."
All right. Well, you guys have a good night. Tell the family hello, or tell the kids hello for us, I should say.
Will do. Say hi.
Hi.
I saw Jared the other day in class.
Yeah, he's right here.
Basically me.
Hi, Jared. Hi, Olivia.
Hi, Caitlin.
You say hi?
Hi.